everyone, and welcome to
Fika for Life.
Oh gosh, my name is Edward Thomas, and my
name
co-host
is Lindgren.
You didn't even wait.
Oh gosh, it's really late. We have too much sugar.
It's late, and this is like a really serious topic too.
Yeah.
But we just did a recorded episode, and it was just, and our after talk is sometimes we just have to let off steam, and we start talking, and it's just really funny.
Can't help it.
And so sometimes it spills over into the next recording.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
Okay.
Yes.
We're going to talk about something where you have very, very personal experience
Yes,
from
I do.
it.
Yes, I do. Yes.
And I only just encountered it recently.
Yes.
Yeah.
So when I was 22 years old, I had my first child, Eddie, and he was born on New Year's Day. And on the 2nd of January, the doctors came in. And on the 1st, I was like, I should know what's going on. Something's wrong, but I don't know what it is.
Did they tell you something's wrong, or you felt something
No,
was
it's just
wrong?
because I was pre-med at the time and I had been studying genetic disorders and everything in class. Mm-hmm. And I was like, I know there's something's like in my mind going, and I just couldn't put it together. And I think because we were so young, I mean, 22 and 23, it's like
so unlikely.
Yeah. And the doctors had actually asked us if we wanted to have an amniocentesis done. We're like,
no, it's really risky.
And we actually thought about it. And the doctor said, well, you could actually lose the baby. And we figured that, okay, we don't want to take that chance.
Yeah.
So on the 2nd of January, we found out that Eddie has Down syndrome. And so I remember, I always remember it as the doctors, they're in slow motion. So in my mind, I still remember it that way. It's like, your son has Down syndrome.
This is how you perceived it.
Yes.
Yeah.
I don't know if it really happened that slowly.
I don't think
but
so.
in my memory, it's still that way. So it must have happened because my brain is always right. And that started and we went to the doctors, and the doctors told us that Eddie would never.
It's not in net though.
No. So this is my sons have their biological mother, who left when they were 1 and 2 years old.
It's crazy.
So yeah, and then she's never had anything to do with them since then. I think she's seen them 6 times since she left.
Oh wow.
And she hasn't seen them now in over 30 years. So crazy, huh? But anyway. The doctors told us that he would never know how to walk or eat or do anything. And the doctor actually tried to get us to institutionalize him. So put him in an institution, lock him away, which of course...
So he would be taken care of.
Yeah, and back then, back in the 50s, that's what they did. And people died.
But he was not born in the 50s.
No, he was born in the 80s.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he was born in 84, which is kind of late for the doctors because by that time we had started integration programs. So it wasn't about race. Integration means that kids with Down syndrome were placed in classrooms with regular kids.
Yeah, or other disabled kids. Or
no, it was
diverse.
They just put because
only Down syndrome kids.
Yeah, as far as I know, they only did it with they did it with Down syndrome. They did it with kids who were blind, I think.
Yeah,
but mostly it was Down
tell you some
but not
disabilities.
but not like deaf kids or if you were. There are other kinds of things that could happen, but they didn't happen. But if they thought that you could fit in the regular environment, because the whole thing was that kids with Down syndrome actually can learn things. Yeah. But my doctor wasn't convinced about that.
He was
tried
very
to get us to do it.
old school.
I'm like, I'm not doing that to my son. Are you stupid or something? I don't care. He's got Down syndrome, okay? And so, I went to. Because all these people told me I had no faith if I didn't go to the healing line. So I went to church. I went in 5 or 6, I don't know, healing lines or whatever. He still looks the same. He's got Down syndrome. Okay.
I'm it's so weird. How would you want to pray away?
That's because everyone thought it was first. Okay, so here, I guess I have to say the bad things too. So people are like, it's because you had sex with a Chinese person. It was interracial and God is punishing you.
Who told you that?
People. Black people and Chinese people.
Okay, from each side. Okay.
Yeah, no, it wasn't one-sided. It was stupidness on both sides.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
And then someone says, oh, it must be punishment because you had sex outside marriage. I'm okay, it's all this is just punishment?
I'm there are way too many people who have sex outside marriage, and the numbers of Down syndrome kids is not that high.
No, exactly. I'm okay. And So the healing thing didn't. I don't know if it worked. I mean, Eddie has no, like, he doesn't have a heart problem and stuff like that. So maybe he was healed, I guess, in some way. I don't know. But then we had a geneticist, and she said, "Okay, listen, you guys are a young couple. You cannot afford to have me. So what happens is when you go for your checkups, you call me." And come to my office an hour earlier, and I'll show you all the exercises you're supposed to do. I'll teach you how to do the thing that I get paid to do.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay. So I dropped out of college and quit my job at the restaurant. Yeah. Well, I mean, didn't have to, but their biological mom, Christina, she didn't bond with the kids or anything.
Maybe had depression.
No, she was abusive.
She weird.
She was just crazy anyway. Okay. But anyway, besides that,
she didn't bond with the kid.
Yeah, because her mom really loved Eddie. So her mom was like, oh, and she would and her mom hated me. But all of a sudden, when Eddie was born, her mom was like really nice and would always want to watch them, watch Eddie and stuff.
Yeah.
So Robin, who's the geneticist, she taught me all the exercises, and that's what I did every day. I played with Eddie. I did the exercises. We tried because kids with Down syndrome have low muscle tone. And so the things, if you can get them to play,
then they're going to develop.
They're going to get tired earlier. They get tired faster than kids who don't have Down syndrome. But the muscles will develop, and you can teach, it takes longer. So you have to have a lot of patience. But Eddie learned, like he was walking, when he was about a year old.
That's normal.
He was really strong. And he was walking, and he learned, all the things the doctor said he wouldn't learn.
He did.
So Eddie rides bikes. He plays basketball. He has a really good eye-hand ball coordination. He really likes sports. He plays inabandi bowling, learned to swim, played tennis.
Yeah.
All these different things. Where we saw, and we thought that we had done right with trying to help him with, because I taught the kids sign language first, because I knew that you could sign faster, you can learn how to speak.
Yeah, that's true.
But the problem is that we moved to Sweden. So we spent all these years, 9 years, for him to learn and to train English and speak English. And then he had to start all over when we moved here because he had to learn Swedish.
So how did that go?
It went pretty well. I mean, so I had to move to the States to get my visa, and Annette's here with 4 kids at that time.
By herself?
By herself.
Oh, gosh.
So, I mean, think Eddie's then he's he might have been, because it was in the end of the year, so he was 7. Oh. And Jonathan was 6. And then Paulina was a year and a half, and Nicole was just born.
Oh, gosh.
But the government wouldn't let me stay, because they weren't sure that we were really married for real. We might be faking it with 4 kids. I'm like, okay, stupid. So I had to go back to the States for 18 months. So I'm in the States for 18 months.
18 months?
Yeah, before I got my visa.
So you didn't see your kids for 18 months?
For 18 months. When I leave Sweden, Nicole's just a newborn baby. When I come back, the whole family speaks Swedish, but not me.
Yeah.
So I couldn't understand anything. I couldn't understand
Nicole. Oh, it's
and
bad.
And this is the great thing about my father-in-law. He helped all the kids learn Swedish. He taught Eddie how to ski. He would do things with him. So Eddie, they love Annette's parents.
Yeah.
But anyway, the whole thing was that. So a lot of people feel like, oh, I feel so sad for you that you had a kid with Down syndrome. And some people have asked me through the years, wouldn't it have been better if you would have aborted him? because that was our big thing. It's like in Denmark. In Denmark, you were saying that that there's hardly any child now born with Down syndrome.
Yeah.
Because people are now, I don't know, they've bought the lie and they're aborting totally normal. I mean, yeah, okay, Down syndrome is a genetic disorder. Yes, it has developmentally nedsatt funktion, so developmentally or something, or whatever. I forgot what it's called now.
But I think also there's a spectrum of Down syndrome people. You can have really, really bad symptoms of this genetic diversity, the heart problem, you cannot walk, you cannot talk, you cannot feed yourself, you have
because the syndrome means it's not just a disease thing, it covers it affects a whole range of different things, but it affects them differently.
It doesn't have to. And then you have people who have the 3rd chromosome, because you're only supposed to have 2 of chromosome 21, but you have 3, and some people you can't even see. They don't even have like this eyes, that physical appearance. So, and then in Sweden at least, the CUP test, the combination test for you take the mother's blood and you do an ultrasound and you calculate the risk of your child having a genetic illness. Okay. But that's only a risk.
Yeah.
Even if it's let's say 60%. That's only. There is a 60% chance that you might have a kid with some genetic disorder.
Right.
Could be. And then, but you still have 40%. Your kid is totally healthy. There's nothing wrong with it.
Yeah.
So, what do you take?
Yeah. And why would you? And then what bothers me nowadays is that when did Down syndrome become such a bad thing, so that you're not aborting a baby because the mother's health is in danger. The life is in danger. The baby's life is not in danger.
No,
you're aborting the baby because it's not.
It has a potential.
Well, no, it's like a Gucci bag, because because you have like a secondary grade or something.
Okay.
And so if you have Gucci bags, they're not exactly right. Then they're downgraded and they're so cheap or they're thrown away.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like you look at the babies like, if it's not totally perfect, Facebook perfect, then people don't want to have their kids because of the accessory.
But you know what's weird?
That's how I think. And it makes me really sad.
But you know what's weird is though that those things are just like the things you have before the baby is born. Yeah. Those are just risk. They're just numbers. They're statistics.
Yeah.
Likelihoods. And for example, in my son's new preschool, that's why we started talking about this. And because he started his new preschool, there was this introductory phase where I also was in the school. And then I got to know all his classmates. And one of them is a kid who has Down syndrome. So I've obviously heard about Down syndrome and read about it a lot and so on, but it's very different to actually meet someone with Down syndrome. And that boy is so cute. Like he is he's very different from all the other cute kids. Okay, that boy, he's so innocent. Like there's no back thought of whatever he does. Like he wouldn't just go to a kid and just take their toy because that's mine. No. He wouldn't do that. And also they are signing in that school because he hasn't.
That's really good.
He hasn't started speaking yet, so they are signing everything and they make him. So I call him Peter. Peter, you gotta sign back. What do you want? Sign back. So make him sign because he understands a lot of signs.
Exactly.
But he doesn't sign, so they try to make him sign. And that's one thing that I don't know. His parents probably knew that he might have Down syndrome, but decided that no, we want our child to be born. And then there's another kid who has really bad autism. What I mean by really bad is that from the outside you can't see, but he is really in his world. When you look at him, you can see he's not connected to anything around him. Wow. He doesn't speak. He can only scream. I think he is 4 years old.
Wow.
He cannot talk. He cannot interact with anyone. Yeah. And the teachers basically only try to talk to him. They try to calm him. They try to, because he can't communicate. It's like he's in a bubble.
Wow.
And he gets really stressed out by like noises and a lot of people and
too
things.
Much input.
Yeah, too much impact.
Yes, you have the low input inside.
And I think that those things you can't see in a genetic test.
No.
But would you abort that kid?
No.
But I'm just asking, for people who say, but sometimes people, I think they are saying, poor kid, they will suffer. And I'm how do you know if that kid would suffer?
Exactly.
How that kid suffers?
Yeah.
What is your idea of suffering? Is it better to so-called suffer, or you think they suffer, or to not even exist?
Yeah. I mean, and I think that, for those people out there, two really good friends of mine, a few years ago, they had a child with Down syndrome. Actually, I have a few friends now with children with Down syndrome. So one of my old friends back up at Skellefteå, she had a child with Down syndrome, and I didn't know. And then one day I was looking at her Facebook, and we were talking, and she said, she goes, didn't you have a child with Down syndrome? Yeah, she goes, yeah, me too. I'm like, what? I didn't know that. And so we talked about it, and what I find out is that Well, when I lived back in the States, there was more networking between the parents with kids with Down syndrome. So we would all share like our experiences and, you
Maybe
can get
help,
this. And
yeah.
yeah. And what I find here was that I wouldn't have the same networking.
Yeah.
Because one of the things was that usually parents with Down syndrome, kids with Down syndrome were older.
Yeah.
But because we were so young, there was like just an age disconnect.
Yeah.
Because all the other parents were all old. And we were like really young. And even when Annette adopted the boys, we were still like, Annette was still in her 20s and I was in my 30s. And we were just like, we never
winged
connected.
it.
Yeah, we just
winged it.
So we did and I think like for us, we decided that we would raise Eddie as normal as possible. I remember once that, so we had reported to social services. And so we had
Who reported you?
Somebody called them and
okay.
stuff.
And said what?
Well, because they felt that we weren't. Some people were upset that we didn't make a big deal about Eddie being handicapped. Because we never said anything. We didn't tell people. I'm like, he has Down syndrome. He has Down syndrome. We're like, here's Eddie. This is our son.
But you can see. I've seen your son.
Yeah, I mean now, but when he was a baby, people they didn't see it as easily.
Okay.
But
then why would you go around telling people?
Yeah, but for us, we were like, but we just see him as Eddie.
Yeah.
We don't see him as his handicap.
Yeah, he's the only thing he is his handicap.
Yeah, exactly. And we figure that we would raise him as normal as we could be.
Yeah.
You know, within his own limitations and stuff. So we saw this social worker who also had a handicap. He had like his hand was like all messed up.
Yeah.
And he was like really upset with us that we didn't like point out his handicap. I'm like, dude, that sounds like we had a big fight. I'm like, that sounds like that's your problem. You're trying to project whatever problems you have with your parents, you know, that's your problem. But for us, I'm like, we don't see him as handicapped.
Yeah.
He's like, well, that's the problem. I'm like, no, that's not a problem.
That's your problem.
We see him as just Eddie.
Yeah.
And we treat him as Eddie. If Eddie has Down syndrome, just like if Eddie had a broken arm or if Eddie had orange hair or whatever, all these things are part of his
him.
life. But we're not gonna limit him because that's what society wants.
Yeah.
And so this guy, but then we had to go to court about it.
Really?
Yeah. So, but it turned out okay.
But it's really strange. I mean, it's not like you throw him into a pool like swim, Eddie.
No, he could already swim anyway. But
no, but I mean, it doesn't sound like you were giving him tasks that were beyond his abilities and always made him feel bad and make him fail all the time. And that is how it sounds like when you tell me that social worker was talking to you. That is what I perceive. Yeah. Like, oh, you should have pointed out that he can't be thrown in the pool because he has Down syndrome. Like, no.
And it was really weird. And one of the funniest thing is that Eddie was always the older brother, and there was a point where Jonathan sort of developed past
him. Yeah.
But for a long time, 10 years probably.
Yeah.
Because they would just do everything together. They sort of have their own little crazy language, which I don't understand. How Jonathan understood everything Eddie was saying. I'm like, I don't get it. Okay, whatever. What do you say, Jonathan? Like, he said this. I'm like, okay.
But siblings do though.
Yeah,
they understand each other. They translate.
And even like Pauline and Nicole and Jessica, the girls, they all have their own little weird. I have no idea what they're talking about half the time. They're all laughing. I'm like, I'm just glad they're happy. Okay, whatever. They're not killing each other. So, but I don't feel sorry for me.
No.
And I don't feel sorry for Eddie.
Yeah.
And I think that's hard for people to understand because they're only seeing him as handicapped. And so if you're handicapped, that's got to be something bad. And yeah, okay. There are limitations. There are things like he's sterile, he can't have kids, and he really wants to have kids. But my son is probably one of the most caring people that I know. I mean, so when he comes over and visits us, he's always saying, so how's mama? How's papa? You know, and he's very sensitive to how we are. And if we're not, one day Annette and I had a really big fight and it really, really bothered him. And he went to his room and cried.
Yeah. You guys are like, oh no.
And we're like, we are the world's worst parents. Oh my gosh. You know, or like last week when Annette had her birthday and Eddie came over and like we're all eating, and then when it's time to to clean up the table. He just naturally goes, "Oh, I can help," and he'll clean up the table and stuff. Or he'll step. He's like, I'm like, "Oh, we're gonna eat, Eddie." He's like, "Okay." He's like, "How many people?" And I'm like, "Oh, 5." And he's like, "Okay."
He would set
and he
the
counts
table.
5 plates and he counts 5 spoons and 5. So it's really fun. And the funny thing is that he thinks I'm stupid. So because
You probably are.
he figured that out a long time ago. No, because he'll ask me something. And sometimes if I'm not listening, I'll say, "What?" He's like, my papa fucking thing," which is like,
Again.
Dad doesn't understand anything. So he says it in English.
Yeah.
Because he figures that I speak English because I'm stupid. Because if I was smart, I would speak Swedish. That's so that's like one of the funniest things. But he's like, I'm like, "Oh, how are you, Eddie?" He's like, "I'm fine." I'm like, "Are you really sure?" He's like, "Always fine." I'm like, "Okay." And then he'll say things like, I'm like, "How's life?" He's like, "Papa, you're annoyed." Which means I'm like totally satisfied.
Yeah, I'm satisfied.
And so he's like, and it's true. His life is, part of
it's
it has
fulfilling.
the quality of life that you can have in Sweden.
Yeah.
But he is just, his life is good. He doesn't want anything. Like, he's not suffering from anything.
No.
He doesn't. There's nothing missing in his life. He has everything he needs.
He wants.
And he's like, he's at a point of contentment that hardly anyone else I know is at that point. And whether it's he used to have his girlfriend named Ida, and Ida, like, she doesn't have the physicality of Eddie, but she could read and write. So I was always impressed, like, and I always thought like Eddie can.
But she also has Down syndrome?
Yeah. So,
okay.
So she had Down syndrome, and then Jeanette also had Janet. She also had Down syndrome.
Those are his girlfriends.
Yeah, so this is like, I mean, they're the girls that he grew up with, and he ended up dating both of them, you know. And whereas Ida, she was like really good at speaking, she was good at reading and writing, but she couldn't do it in the physical things. But Eddie and Jeanette, they were like really physical and stuff like that. But like Jeanette couldn't really speak that well, and Eddie probably speak about the same. Maybe, I don't know, they're probably around the same. And but all these kids like grew up together, and they were just friends, and it was really nice, and it was fun, and where Sweden provides those kind of things, and I can't imagine now where Eddie's about to turn 40 in 15 months.
Really?
Yeah.
What? You're such an old son.
I know, I'm such an old person.
No, you got a kid really early. That's why.
Oh, is that why? That's what happened. Yes, I was into it really early. No, and then I cannot imagine that I would be the person I am today without him.
No, imagine you would you said you dropped out of school, you quit your job, a lot of things changed because of you became a father so young.
Yeah, and it was a lot of responsibility. I mean, I think the hardest thing was that when he was still in diapers when he was 5, I think. And it took us a long time to get him to the point where he was so potty trained that he, and I think some of it has to do with the stress of our living.
Yeah.
I think that because I had to work all the time too.
Yeah.
So later on when they got older, I went back to the restaurant business. And so I think that some things I didn't know how to do better, unfortunately. And so, but that was the potty training thing was like really, really difficult.
Tough, yeah.
Because it just took a long time. And so there's things like, so I had to learn to be a really patient person, because like everything took a lot longer with Eddie. And then we always had to prepare him ahead of time. We couldn't just say, "Okay, Eddie, we got to leave the house now. Put your clothes on." No, we have to say, "Okay, Eddie, we're going to leave the house soon. Get ready, get ready, get ready, get ready, get ready, get ready." So we have to keep him sort of starting earlier so he can get done at the time that we needed to leave. Or that, so he's learned how to read, and he's kind of taught himself how to read.
He taught himself.
Yeah, because he watches TV.
Yeah.
And then when he saw something, he would write it down. So he would, if he's watching a movie, he'd pause the movie.
Yeah.
Then he'd get out a pencil and paper, and then he'd write it down. And he'd write it over and over again. And the funny thing is, I don't think he can read.
Oh, he memorized it, you think?
Yeah, it's like every word is like a character, like in Chinese. So every word's a character.
Maybe you should teach him Chinese.
So when he sees the word car, it's not because he's sounding car.
No.
Is CAR is the character for car.
Yeah.
So it's like that.
And wow.
So he can spell a lot of things and stuff like that. And so it's so weird. And so when people are talking to him, it seems like he understands everything because he's so alert. But we know he does not understand everything. and sometimes
you say it like that little dude.
Yeah, I'm like, and it's because we went to see a psychiatrist. Here in Sweden, you have to see a psychiatrist. So the psychiatrist like, so what kind of future dreams and hopes do you have? And he looked at me. He's like,
why is he asking
Dad?
me?
He's like, what is he saying? I'm like, I'm trying to think, how do I simplify? I'm like, I'm like, you work with people with disabilities all the time. What are you like stupid? Why would you ask such a complicated question?
You could ask like, so what do you want to do?
I'm like, so what do you want to do?
Yeah.
He's like, huh? Like in the future, like what do you want to do this year, next year? It's like, I want to dress like Superman. I want to fly like Clark. I want to be like Clark Kent. I'm like, that's his dream. He asked about his future.
Yeah.
And this guy kept asking all these weird questions, and I saw this on Channel 4 this week. This guy, he went to a school, to a daglig verksamhet, and he's so into his reporting that he doesn't understand. He's not really connecting with it. And I was so frustrated. I wanted to throw my shoe at the TV and like, that's just not how you. I mean, slow down.
So bad journalism.
Slow down. Shorten the sentences. Simplify the sentences. All these kids are gonna connect. They can't express themselves. They can talk to you. You're just.
But you have to break it down to.
You have to break it down. Yeah. And so.
But that's what a good communicator does anyway. So you might start off on a certain level, and then you see the confusion on their face, and then you rephrase, and maybe they have still confusion. Then you simplify it until you reach a level where they catch on.
Yeah, exactly. And I find that a lot of people who've been in the sort of same category with Eddie most of them are pretty loving, kind.
Yeah, I think so.
Eddie is like, it's 100%. What you see is what you get. If he don't like you, he's gonna say, "I don't like you." I mean, it was really hard when we're growing up.
There's no filter.
We're in the store, and this lady comes in with a red dress with white fur.
Oh no!
And both the boys scream, "Santa Claus!" Like, oh no! I just want to die. I want to climb underneath the counter and just like bury myself,
hide.
And I'm like, "It's not Santa. It's Santa Claus!" And they're just screaming, and they're so excited to see Santa Claus. And I'm thinking, like, "Oh my gosh, this is so embarrassing." And then one day, my friend came to visit me. I think Eddie was like 4 years old, and he said, "Oh, you're really fat." And I'm like, "But Eddie," he's like, "Look, Dad, look her stomach, it's really big." I'm like, "Well, you know how kids are. They say what they say.
Yeah,
they can't. They don't have any filters." And I wanted to die. And it was like, there was always like wacky stuff like that happened. He's like, there's just no filter. They don't.
But most kids, when they're small, they're like that, and then you gotta teach them eventually, like some things you can't say.
Tell a lie. Better to lie. Lie. Don't say
Not
anything.
lie, but you don't have to say everything you think.
Lie. Yeah. So and I feel like there is. Yeah, sometimes there are things that can be really difficult, and it does take a lot of work. And I feel you get back more. Sorry.
I think some people would say, some would say, but maybe I'm not ready to take on this responsibility, or they believe they are not. They are saying, "Oh, I'm not strong enough to struggle through this."
You don't know that,
or things like that.
I didn't know that either. I didn't think I was strong enough. I didn't think I'd be a good dad. I felt I was too young. I didn't know enough. I didn't know anything about any kind of handicap or anything like that. You learn. You doing. Man up. Yeah, you learn by doing. Yeah. You do the things that you need to do, and you take care of business.
Yeah.
And yeah.
But I think
it's not the worst thing in the world. Trust me, it's not.
But I mean, I think there are several perspectives on it, because one is that the parents might feel, am inadequate. Like I cannot deal with this. Like neither psychologically, not physically, not financially. Like I don't have the capacity, not emotionally. They maybe feel like they're inadequate.
Yeah. I can see that.
But I think also that maybe people have this sense of shame. Oh, you have a disabled kid. Then what you got, like, oh, it's because you had interracial relations, or because you had sex outside of marriage and things like that. Yeah. And I mean, nowadays it's maybe not. I mean, it was unlikely when you were young. I think nowadays people get kids way older, so the risk or the chances of getting a kid with disability is much higher.
It is.
It
is.
But I don't think the numbers. I don't think the numbers of Down syndrome kids has gone up though, which means that somehow those kids must.
Yeah, people are not carrying them to term. Yeah, I mean, because I think it was like 1 in 800 when we're in our 20s, but then by the time you get to, I think it's like 35 or 38 or something like that, it doesn't. I mean, the risk increases a lot.
Yeah, exponentially.
Yeah, it's like it's like 50% or something like that.
It doesn't
38 or something like that.
And then the older, like 80%. Yeah. So I'm like, woo.
So but I still would say it's still not the worst thing in the world. I mean, Eddie is our heart. He is the heart of our family, and I just like somebody did something to my son. It would be really hard for me not to want to hurt them.
If someone would hurt your son.
Oh, and I oh my gosh. Woo! Don't do that because
I told people because they were not. They said they couldn't believe that I would go like crazy on people if they would hurt my children. They're like, no, you wouldn't. Like, you have no idea what I'm capable of. Yeah. Like,
don't hurt my children.
Yeah,
because you will.
And I think
I'm not a violent person, but it doesn't mean I can't be.
I can be definitely a violent person.
I know you can. That's why I always stand 20 feet away from you because
when Lynn comes with a bitch face, you better go.
You run.
You go hide somewhere.
I do. I'm like, you let's come stand in front of your wife. No, but I think that, I mean, this is probably one of our more serious topics, but I think, okay, so if you're out there and you just realize that you have a child with Down syndrome.
Or you might have a friend.
If you have a friend who has a kid with Down syndrome, don't feel sorry for them.
Yeah.
I mean, the pity part, it doesn't even help anyway, so don't do that. Treat the kid like a kid. Treat it like a baby. Play with them. And you can't hurt them anymore. You can't hurt any other kid. They're not more fragile or anything like that. And that if my experience is that a lot of, kids and people with Down syndrome just want to be loved. Eddie just wants to be like everyone else. I mean, I think the hardest thing for us right now is that he wants to have, like I told you,
children.
He wants to get married. He wants to have kids. And we're trying to get him to understand that he's sterile. And it's just we have not succeeded in that. And that kind of is really sad because he has the same dreams, the same aspirations like anyone else. But his Down syndrome has also consequences for his life.
Limit him.
Guys are sterile. Women are not sterile, but they have a 50% chance of having a child with Down syndrome or not. So that people try to discourage them from having kids and everything.
Because if you have Down syndrome already, take care of a kid that all has done.
Yeah,
I think that's a lot.
Yeah, it's a lot. And one of the things that's really bad, like one of the things I think when we moved Eddie from the city, moved him outside the city to the countryside, was because teenage kids who are underage, would try to be, and this is in quotes, try to be his friend, and so get him because he has a ID that he's old enough. So he could go in the store and buy I'm like, what would you? He could buy cigarettes. He could buy alcohol.
What kind of sick teenage kids are there?
And so there's kids, so there's teenage kids that would use him. I'm like, oh, if I have found those kids, my gosh, I'd be in jail because I would have slapped me some kids. I would beat them up.
I would make their parents slap them because
and the parents would get
those kids punched. Are morally very
so
off.
I mean, it's just like there's a guy in our church who has a handicap, and I remember
but everyone loves him though.
Yeah, because he's 100% himself, you know. But I remember once going to eat at McDonald's when they used to be in town, and these kids were teasing him, and I remember stood up on the table in McDonald's.
You?
Yeah. Oh, and I just said, listen here, this guy's my friend here, and if you're gonna make fun of him, and he thinks you're being funny. He thinks you're being playful, but you're making him say all these bad words in front of people, and then you're laughing at him.
Yeah.
I said, so why don't you come do that to me? Because I'll beat the shit out of you.
Woo! That big black man said something. You better run.
I'm like, so you want to take me on? Because if you mess with him, that means you mess with me. You want some of this? Woo. They're like, no. I'm like, so why would you do that? Why would you pick on someone like that? Are you and I said the A word.
Really?
Are you an a-hole? I said, what? They said, oh, I'm really sorry. I said, you're not sorry to me. You're sorry to him. Don't ever let me see you do that again. I said, I'll come over and I'll slap the funny off of you. And it's like,
oh, good job, Dad.
And everyone's like, people are like, oh, he thinks, well, like, no, that's just normal. I'm like, because at that point, I'm not very Swedish.
No, I'm not Swedish.
I'm standing on the table screaming in McDonald's like a crazy person. And even I've seen people like on the bus, and I'll walk up to people and say, leave them alone, okay? Yeah. Pick on somebody who can kick your ass, like me. Sorry, people, I did swear. I mean, sometimes it does happen. Doesn't happen very often, but sometimes it does happen. But I just because I think that's at some point when a society no longer can provide a safe environment,
protective
for the weakest members of society, the ones that need most help, then society's jacked up.
It is.
People are jacked up. Yeah, and I'm like, that kind of society needs to be reformed. So,
by Jesus.
Oh yeah, of course, not by me. Of course, I wasn't trying to take credit for change of society. I gotta repent. Okay.
That was a really nice message, though, to people that there's hope, there's encouragement, and
yeah, I mean there is. I love my son, and oh my gosh, he's taught me so many things. But yeah, so love people, visit your friends. When people have kids with Down syndrome, it does take a lot of energy. Just watch the kids for them sometimes. The kids are not hard to watch. They usually just want to play.
They're like every other kid.
They're like every other kid. They want to touch everything. They want to play. They want to have fun. So
just keep them outside, Yeah. Just take them out. Let's go to play around.
Yeah, it's like get an animal and just like, chase the dog. Okay. Just run in circles over and over again. So, don't let people who have kids who are handicapped become isolated. It's really easy. Everyone sort of avoids you.
Because they don't know how to behave around you.
Yeah, or they're afraid. Some people probably think it's contagious. People are so stupid.
Yep.
So that's, but that's, and do whatever you want with your body, but don't. No, I'm going to take that one back. You know what?
Don't do everything.
If you find out that you have a kid who's going to have Down syndrome,
or might have
Down syndrome,
because you cannot 100% say
no. So then might have Down syndrome. You know what? Don't just have a baby because it looks good on Facebook or Instagram. That's a human life.
Yeah.
Period. It's a human life, and that life can bring you so much joy, more, and it can teach you so many things.
Yeah. Don't
throw that opportunity away just because it's not picture perfect.
Yeah.
Ooh, that was deep.
Too deep.
No. Well, and this is one of our, even though we did start off laughing like craziness. And if you have more these kind of subjects, we don't just talk about things that are funny. We also talk about things that mean a lot to us also. So continue to write, continue to ask questions, and we will keep doing episodes as our listeners keep giving us information and input.
Yes.
Thanks a lot, Lynn, for doing this.
Thank you for sharing your great wisdom. Because I think it's very different from hearing about it or reading about it and then have someone actually tell us about it firsthand.
And don't let people tell you that your kid can't do anything. Kids are amazing. It's incredible what kids can accomplish.
Yeah.
So, all right, everyone. Thanks a lot for watching, and you have a great day. Don't forget to tell your friends and share this with everyone that you know.
Yay!
And you can buy our merchandise too. It costs a lot, but that's okay. You support our program. See ya.
Bye. Thank you for listening. If you have any comments or ideas, please send us a message to fikaforlife@mail.com. Fika, F-I-K-A. This was the Fika for Life podcast with Lin Nguyen and Edward Thomas, and we hope to hear you again.